Morning, I'm Trinity Chavez. It is Thursday, March 7th, and you are watching NYSE TV Live. While the New York Stock Exchange is best known for being the epicenter of global financial markets, it also has hosted many meaningful events and initiatives from organizations around the world. This morning, we will dive into some of the exchange's latest events celebrating women, because not only is March Women's History Month, but International Women's Day is this Friday. Now, to give you a little bit more background, International Women's Day was first held in 1911, and it celebrates the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day calls for positive change, advancing women, accelerated gender parity, and fundraising for women-focused charities. This year's theme is Inspire Inclusion, aiming to boost a sense of belonging, relevance, and empowerment. We'll be covering this throughout the hour, but later, Bianca Cavassini is going to join us to tell us more about a recent event held here in this iconic building, celebrating female founders that she helped put together from start to finish. And after the opening bell, two of this year's Journey to Lead Fellows, Syndio CEO Maria Colacurcio and Fresh Belly CEO and founder Saskia Sarosa will join me to discuss how they are accelerating the diversity and trajectory of women in leadership. Then Forward Global CEO Renee Kaplan and Forward Global Board Chair Elliot Donnelly will share how they are committing to sustainability and innovation in an effort to maximize social impact. Now, there's plenty of other headlines that we're going to get to forming here at the cradle of capitalism as well. And in less than a half an hour, we'll take you live to the trading floor where Pentair CEO John Stauch will ring the opening bell. This company is on a mission to help the world's sustainability move water and trading here under the ticker symbol PLR, and now they are here to open up the U.S. equity markets for the day. We'll also be speaking with the CEO of Roberts & Ryan, America's first service-disabled veteran-owned broker-dealer, and how they are officially joining the floor. Switching gears a little bit, the Web Summit Qatar 2024 took place last week, and the street host, JD Durkin, was in Doha covering the event, and he's joining me now to talk more about this. Good morning, JD.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, pal.
Yeah, so it's always great to have you, but let's talk about some of the big story headliners that you took from attending this event.
Yeah, Web Summit is the world's largest tech event. This was the first of its kind event being held in the Middle East, and largely the programming, Trinity, everything from the on-stage interviews, the panels, the splashy showroom floor, all the cool robots and gadgets and gizmos. It's largely aimed at the entrepreneur. Of course, artificial intelligence, the hot topic of conversation for this year's Web Summit. For instance, one of my onstage talks was with the founder of a regional cloud kitchen startup company that does business in Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and all the ways that they're using artificial intelligence to meet consumers where they are and make sure their inventory levels are where they should be. So really kind of advances in how AI are helping kind of the regional entrepreneur. But overall, I think if you take a step back and you look at this, it is a really big deal what is happening in the Middle East right now. There is this remarkable fintech boom. You talk about a country of Qatar, where I just was. The whole country, Trinity, has a population the size of Brooklyn, but imagine Brooklyn with a $450 billion sovereign wealth fund. And they are using that money to invest in asset management, to invest in tech, to invest in sports. Qatar just held the World Cup for soccer 2 years ago. So we're going to be talking a lot more about this remarkable regional ecosystem, I think, in places like Doha, Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai for many years to come.
I was going to say, let's dive in more to the region's business investment landscape. I mean, are those the biggest takeaways that you took from it, or what do you think we can expect recent years?
These are oil and gas giants, these countries are. I mean, if you look at the countries that have the petroleum oil reserves, the United States is ranked like 10th on the list, and Qatar, with its population of 2.6 million, is only 14th on the list. And so they are using kind of these sovereign wealth funds that they have to incentivize travelers from all around the world to come to give the Middle East a new look. And the boom is very apparent from as soon as you are in a place like Doha. The skyscrapers are just absolutely breathtaking. They are going up by the month, and you really see the energy, the excitement to invest in tech, to invest in entrepreneurship, and to present themselves to the world in that way.
I'm getting the energy and the excitement from you right now.
But when I asked you this, hyped up,
I know, and when we talked about it this morning, you were just like, oh my God, it's probably one of the best events that you've ever been to, and just like the takeaways and everything that you learned from that event. It's very exciting.
And every time I do a Web Summit event in a different part of the world, you have exposure to those regional ecosystems. So I've covered the event Collision up in Toronto, Web Summit Lisbon in Portugal, Web Summit Rio in Brazil is itself a remarkable event, but there is something really unique, I think, about the power of investment that's going on in the Middle East right now. And there's so much interest, I think, in the long term to even have a lot of those companies enter the U.S. markets. That's going to be a fascinating conversation I'll be covering as a journalist in the years to come. And we're going to have this conversation a lot more here at the New York Stock Exchange, I think, in the next few years.
Definitely. Well, let's talk about politics. I mean, we're gearing up for Super Tuesday, and, you know, State of the Union is taking place tonight. What should investors be looking out for ahead of all of this? How is it going to impact the market?
Listen, it's not the splashiest answer, but I do think the most important thing is tax policy. Now that Super Tuesday is behind us, it's basically a foregone conclusion. It's Joe Biden against Donald Trump. But we can't forget so many important sweeping tax breaks of that 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the Trump-era tax cuts. They expire at the end of next year. That is going to really permanently re-alter the tax code once again, with huge implications on individuals, on corporations, on businesses all over the country. I think regardless of what happens with the election this year, because the calculus in Washington is going to change, and the exact original bill is not going to be able to be entirely renewed. Otherwise, in terms of the State of the Union tonight, I'll be looking to hear what President Biden has to say about AI regulation. Are there references to artificial intelligence? I think we would all like to see. Safe to assume we're still a ways off from sweeping AI regulation. I think part of that is, I don't know that half of Washington can still quite define what artificial intelligence is, but I'll be looking to see what the president has to say in his speech tonight about that.
And obviously the presidential election later on this year, typically in your experience reporting presidential elections, what have you noticed from investors during these cycles?
I think the traditional thinking is investors like gridlock, meaning one party controls, let's say, the House, another party controls the Senate. That's the congressional reality we have right now. And I think that popular thinking is, okay, well, if you have a kind of a broken or a gridlocked Congress, that decreases the likelihood that they'll work together to pass new sweeping regulations. But ultimately, my suspicion would be, kind of no matter what the outcome is, investors will look for the best in the situation. If it's a clean sweep for President Biden and the Democrats, I think investors will say, cool, maybe that means new infrastructure investment. If it's the opposite for Republicans and President Trump, I think investors will say, cool, that means maybe new tax cuts, and that might boost the markets a bit. And then if it's gridlocked, like I said, they'll say, hey, well, we'll find the silver lining in that as well, and then markets ultimately could react positively to that. So obviously a lot of time between now and the election, we'll see what happens, but I think that tax policy thing is really important for people to pay attention to, even if it's admittedly not the coolest or splashiest topic.
Yeah, you know, a lot to look out for on that front, but let's talk more about the market, right? We have a lot of economic data coming out. We have jobs reports coming out tomorrow. What does this mean for investors when it comes to like inflation and all the news that we're hearing around that? Jerome Powell just spoke yesterday. What's your takeaway?
Yeah, and Powell has to, from time to time, address members of Congress, specifically give an update on the path of monetary policy. He has maintained this incredibly cautious tone. And he has said, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we are firmly at the point where if current economic conditions continue, we can likely and reasonably assume there will be rate cuts at some point between now and the end of the year. But Trinity, you know, he's such a cautious guy.
I know.
He doesn't want to give the markets anything to latch onto. He doesn't want to needlessly create headlines. So he says the outlook is still unclear. Reaching that goal target of 2% inflation is anything but a slam dunk. But ultimately, for tomorrow's numbers, I think we're looking at an expectation of 200,000. But then again, in January, we were expecting 185. The number was almost double that. Might be a bit of an outlier. We say the trend is the friend. But ultimately, I think those expectations have been tapered a bit for rate cuts because Chairman Powell has been so cautious.
Well, thank you so much, JD, for all of that insight.
Thank you.
Now, last week, the NYSE hosted an event for Boss Beauties, a media and entertainment brand inspiring and empowering the next generation of women and girls to be everything they want to be through impact programs, content, and consumer products. I had the pleasure of speaking with CEO Lisa Mayer and other high-profile women about creating opportunities in the tech space. Let's take a look.
Our roots are in Web3. We started Boss Beauties in 2021 in the Web3 space. We wanted to teach them about this new iteration of the internet with emerging tech, right? And give them practical ways to learn it. So we did that through Boss Beauties, and now we're bringing our digital collectibles out into the world through this book in a physical format, which we want to be able to teach women and girls that maybe have never heard about Web3 about that space through the book and all the events that we do too.
And talk to me more about Web3. When did your passion start with this? Talk more about that.
You know, it really started from the art world. I am an avid art collector, very novice art collector, and I thought it was fascinating what folks were doing in the digital space, in the Web3 space with NFTs, and that was what really piqued my interest, and I'm always excited to learn more.
I'm the founder of an organization called Breakthrough Tech, and we are focused on launching a generation of diverse talent into the tech ecosystem, which we know has been challenged in terms of diversity for a long time. But there's a fierce urgency of now with AI exploding into the world, impacting every aspect of how we live and work.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that women founders face is just access to capital, and one of the drivers to that is the bias within the financial system. There are not a lot of investors that are women, and so when women are presenting their ideas and their companies, they just experience a lot of bias in the process. One, because they're women, and then sometimes because they're creating companies that are specialized for women, and then men on the other side of the table just don't understand them. And so that's what's interesting about Serena Ventures. All of our investors are women. And so we have a reduction of bias, I would say, in our investment process that helps with that.
Meanwhile, in early February, Deep Blue and its CEO, Laura Correnti, rang the closing bell to celebrate the 38th annual National Girls and Women in Sports Day. The day recognizes student athletes, champion athletes, coaches, administrators, and lawmakers committed to providing equitable access to sports for all girls and women. Here are some of the biggest moments from that celebration.
I think it's pretty safe to say that this is not a moment, it is a movement, and today is part of that movement. I cannot think of a better way to celebrate Girls and Women in Sports Day than celebrating the launch of Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment at the New York Stock Exchange.
As National Girls and Women's Sport Day has evolved to recognize all female athletes who have had the courage to follow their dreams and to stand tall in adversity, we are here because the work continues. And as evidenced by these young women standing next to me, it must continue. And as we ring the New York Stock Exchange closing bell today, may it be heard across the country and the world that women's sports isn't just having a moment, it is the moment.
And speaking of women athletics, Val Ackerman, the former president of the WNBA and commissioner of the Big East Conference, joined our head of corporate affairs, Josh King, on Inside the Ice House podcast, and the league's popularity is back on the rise.
And what I'm observing now in the last few years is the pickup again. And that's heartening, very heartening. I think some of that is due to societal currents kind of now in the league's favor, maybe not as much when we started the league a generation ago. I do think it was always my view that the league was going to have to sell itself at some point. It wasn't just going to be the NBA pumping it. It had to be these players and these rivalries, and the quality of the game was going to have to be the calling card for the league, just like it's been for the NBA over decades. And so I think that's happening. The quality of play is much better than when we launched it. The players coming out of college have name recognition. Part of that is because there is no early entry into the WNBA like there is on the men's side. Players, in effect, have to stay in college for basically 4 years. So by the time they come into the league, people know who they are. We've lost that in men's basketball for the most part. So I think there's a lot of things in the league's favor right now. Yeah. And the answer to your question is, yeah, I think the future continues to look really, really bright.
And also make sure to listen, review, and subscribe to the Inside the Ice House podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Join Josh King every Monday for conversations with leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Scan the QR code here to listen to more recent episodes. Now, this past February, the exchange hosted the Female Founders Fund CEO Summit, featuring a lineup of some of the most well-known women leaders across an array of different industries. Here are some of those highlights.
Being in this iconic building that represents so much of business and finance, it's really, really special.
It's a lot more authentic than any other event I've been to, and I think a lot of that is because of the caliber of the speakers and the diversity of the speakers that they bring.
It's an amazing lineup of people with a wealth of experience, everywhere from finance to building new companies to investing.
And the conversations I've already had are just so fulfilling.
There's such a vibe in the FFF community.
It rings of opportunity, support, hope, and optimism.
There's really nothing I love more than being in rooms of powerful women, and this is the most powerful room of women. It's really unbelievable.
It's women who have been through very similar experiences, very similar journeys.
I just know that I can always depend on someone in that room to be there for me when I need it. The partnership, the relationships that you build. There are women who I've met in rooms like this that I've kept in touch with for years.
Excited to be here to kind of have an interchange and change lanes a little bit and bring everyone together because we're so much more powerful in numbers.
Joining me now to talk more about this event is the NYSE Director of Issuer, Member, and Advisory Events, Bianca Cavassini. Good morning, Bianca.
Good morning, Trinity. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on live. Now, we just saw two of the events that you helped spearhead, putting everything together from point A to point B, you and your team, I should say. Talk to me about the significance of the last event that we just saw about the female founders and why it was so important.
I mean, it was incredibly important just for the reason that we had over 160 female founders and CEOs all in one room together, being able to talk openly about issues that they face, their experiences, and just kind of be there for everybody. So that was just beautiful and amazing thing to see all those women together in that room.
Yeah, I mean, because not only did you help put this event together from A to Z, I mean, but you were an attendee. You listened to all of these female founders. I mean, we even heard from Diane von Furstenberg, this powerhouse fashion designer. I mean, what were some of your biggest takeaways?
I mean, some of my biggest takeaways, I mean, where do I start? But it was just incredible to hear these women that you idolize and you see how successful they are, but to be so open with advice and relatable with some of the struggles that they've had to deal with, not only in their career, but personal lives. And it was just, you know, a once in a lifetime experience to be able to be so open and candid and hear all of these women be able to discuss everything like that.
Now tell me about something you learned that you took away from the event that not only will you apply in your personal life, but professional life.
I just think one of the biggest things that I learned from this event is just to be open and to ask for help and to, you know, reach out to, you know, other women in the industry and kind of not be afraid to have that type of mentorship or reach out, because there is no struggle too small or an ask too big. Just to be able to have that openness was really important.
And this was a huge event. Tell me about everything that it takes to really put together an event like this, of this caliber. What did you and your team have to do behind the scenes?
I mean, everything from our weekly meetings to make sure that we're all aligned, pulling together all the pieces from booking our speakers, coordinating their interviews, you know, the design and the graphics in the room. There's just so many different pieces, and you know, when you walk into the room and you see this beautiful setup and you see how everything goes, sometimes people don't realize even the small touches of the color of the flowers, to the types of food, to everything, and how much goes into it. But it's always a labor of love, and just to see everyone have an amazing experience and have these great takeaways, it's just really important to me, and it's really meaningful to be able to work on events like this.
Now, it's still early enough in the year. We're in the first quarter right now. I mean, what are some other notable events that you're working on that we can expect for the rest of the year?
I mean, I guess we'll have to tune into another show to be able to hear more about it, but we always have exciting things in the pipeline, and the beautiful thing about my newer role is that the events are so diversified. So even next month, I'm really excited. I'm going down with our options team to Asheville, North Carolina for their big conference.
Cool.
And of course, you know, we're getting ready to start our pre-meetings for tree lighting, so that's always a fun one to get started on. So as you know, that's a good one. So we're really looking forward to it, but just, again, this event was just a beautiful way to kick off Women's History Month and lead up to it. So I'm just excited to hopefully work with them in the future and have them back.
You know, I like how you pointed out the tree lighting, because a lot of people might not know that it takes months and months of planning. As soon as we wrapped last year's tree lighting, we started for the planning of 2024. And I mean, I'm just excited that I could be a part of it along with our team. So a lot to look out for.
Amazing.
It's so good. But we're going to switch gears a little bit now as we're getting closer to the opening bell. Pentair is focused on smart and sustainable solutions, and so is our parent company, ICE. Let's take a look.
If we can limit global warming, we can reduce the impact of climate change. To do this, we need to reach net zero emissions. ICE brought price transparency to energy markets and was a first mover in environmental markets. Today, our data and technology is at the heart of the world's most important energy transition. ICE's carbon allowances and credits incentivize cost-efficient emission reductions and removals. Now, we offer a primary market for carbon credits. Developers who design and operate projects can sell their credits in an auction. The auctions are held on WebICE with robust legal governance. Buyers can access a range of developers and a one-stop shop for carbon credits. Developers can access a large pool of buyers and price transparency. ICE plans to begin carbon credit auctions for Green Trees LLC, who are a global leader in reforestation. Green Trees and its landowners have planted over 50 million trees in North America and aim to plant an additional 100 million trees by 2030. Connect to a more sustainable future. ICE Carbon Credit Auction Service.
When you think of investment risk, do you consider climate risk? Changing weather patterns are impacting the way we live and the value of businesses, large and small. This can mean disruption to supply chains, changing demand for products, and shifting regulation. What does this mean for your business, your clients, and your investments? ICE offers data and markets that can provide critical insight. Manage your climate risk with ICE.
And now you are seeing images right now of our colleague Tara over there behind the Distinguished Guest Book. They just made their way on to the trading floor, and signing the Distinguished Guest Book is hugely significant here at the NYSE because it represents a ceremonial act that symbolizes the importance of the exchange and those associated with it. It indicates the individual or organization's significance in the financial community and their contributions to finance and business. Additionally, it signifies respect for the NYSE's role in global finance and its historical importance. And after signing the Distinguished Guest Book, CEO John Stauch and Pentair executives will walk up to the podium and ring the opening bell, officially opening up the U.S. equity markets. And while the fight against climate change has revved up considerably over the past decade, Pentair has been helping lead the fight for more than a half a century. The company, which trades on the NYSE under ticker symbol PNR, is all about providing smart, sustainable water solutions. Pentair provides many products from residences to businesses, including home water softening and filtration, water and beverage equipment service, as well as commercial ice solutions. Pentair also boasts a global presence, doing business in 150 countries. Now, the company has locations across 4 continents: North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. And while the company's focus is on sustainable water solutions now, it wasn't always that way. Back in 1966, the company was founded by 5 men intent on manufacturing high-altitude balloons. The company's name Pentair stands for the Greek penta, for the 5 founders, and air, for the products they planned to produce. So how did Pentair end up being a water company? Well, the answer is not so straightforward. In 1968, just 2 years after its founding, Pentair entered the paper industry with the acquisition of PV Paper Mills. Now, in 1981, the company entered the tools business by purchasing the Porter Cable brand of electric powerhouse tools. And then in 1988, Pentair stepped into the enclosures industry by acquiring the Hoffman Engineering Company. Then in 2004, nearly 4 decades after its establishment, Pentair enters the water business by acquiring Wicker Industries. Now, as water became a bigger focus, Pentair decided to exit the tools business during that same year. Then in 2018, the company separated its water and electrical business into 2 public companies. The water business retained the Pentair name and ticker symbol PNR. And then finally, in 2002, Pentair bolstered its commercial water solutions by acquiring Menton Cow Ice. Pentair is the latest company focusing on sustainability that stepped foot inside the exchange, and our own Judy Shaw recently spoke with Dan Brulette, President and CEO of the Edison Electric Institute, about the role of electric companies they're playing in the broader transition to clean energy. Let's take a listen.
companies that belong to EEI are really at the tip of the spear of this energy transition. So they're providing clean electricity, which is what consumers have wanted, and they're also providing reliable and resilient electricity, which is also what they want. So if we think about our lives today, we've become more and more dependent upon electricity for everything that we do. And as a result, our companies are stepping up to the plate to make sure that it's there when you need it, when you want it. And it's an important role that we play. It's also important to remember that, roughly 5% of the nation's GDP is coming from the energy industry, from the power industry itself. But importantly, it's the first 5%. As I said earlier, everything that we do today in our lives depends in some way, shape, or form on the provision of electricity. So it's the first 5% of everything that we do in the economy. Very proud to be a part of that.
Now, are electric companies prioritizing customer affordability as they work to build new clean energy resources? And tell me, what kind of energy resources are companies focusing on today?
Well, I think, yes, they are. Affordability is something that we take very, very seriously. And it's the reason that the regulated industry or the regulated model for this industry is so critically important. We're heavily regulated, as you might imagine. We're a public service and a public good, if you think about it in terms of economics or public theory or public economics theory. And because of that, the consumer regulators in each one of the states ensure that the energy that we provide is affordable for all of the consumers in that service territory. So it's something we take seriously as an industry. It's something that regulators take very seriously as well. And as we think about the changing world, it's important for us to also balance our generation sources. So when we become too dependent on one generation source, call it natural gas or call it nuclear power or something else, when we see market volatility in those areas, they're balanced out by the provision of or the new generation sources that we're bringing online, things like wind and solar. And we balance that equation very, very effectively, working right alongside our regulators.
Now, we know that America's electric companies are focused on making the energy grid stronger, smarter, and more secure. Now, tell me, what kind of investment has been made to achieve these goals?
Enormous investments. I'd say last year alone, probably more than $160 billion was made by this industry. Roughly $1 trillion over the last decade alone to build out America's generation sources, to build out the transmission resources that we need, and of course the distribution resources, which goes right to your home. But this industry, again, has been at the tip of the spear of that development. And as we see the transition continuing, as we see the shift, from heavier hydrocarbon fuels like coal or perhaps, fuel oil to renewable power, more and more of that infrastructure is going to be needed. And this industry stands ready to help America and the rest of the world accomplish it.
Around the world, the transition to a new energy economy presents a challenge for companies and investors. At ICE and the New York Stock Exchange, we facilitate the conversations to find solutions to complex problems. We gather a wide range of perspectives to help companies navigate the growing need to recognize climate risk as investment risk. We offer sustainability data and the world's most liquid environmental markets, so clients can measure, manage, and mitigate their risks. Wherever you are in your sustainability journey, we provide the tools and networks to help you identify risk, spot opportunity, and make more informed decisions.
All right, we're about 60 seconds out from opening up the U.S. equity markets. And just to give all of our viewers a little bit of a preview of what's happening on the trading floor right now is that we have around 200 traders that are actively placing in orders that have come in overnight as we get ready to officially open up the markets. You'll see me down on the trading floor being pushed around from time to time just because the traders are zipping from one end to the floor to the other, trying to get those orders in. And we're going to get a market update from them when we head down to the trading floor. I mean, the exchange is one of the largest exchanges in the world, arguably the largest exchange in terms of market cap in the world, with over $40 trillion in total market cap. Whoever is ringing the opening bell, all eyes are going to be on them from around the world. Around 100 million people could be tuning in to see who is ringing that opening bell and opening up the U.S. equity markets. Actually, we're about 5 seconds out from that right now, so I am going to listen in and I'll meet you on the floor.
together, we built something truly beautiful in the true iconic notion of what America is all about.
This is our task, this is our mission. We have a clear focus and we have the ability to be agile and innovate.
It takes years of dedication to get us to this milestone. It is all because of you.
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. It is the only thing that ever has.
To be a woman leader, it's not so easy, but it's easy if the passion and the love is coming from your heart.
The New York Stock Exchange is the symbol of what America is all about. Potential of capitalism, the potential of an American dream.
The only way you can move a society forward is a true expression of freedom.
It's been a historic week here at the New York Stock Exchange for Robertson Ryan. They have officially started trading here at the NYSE. To talk more about this, I am joined with the CEO, Ed Alessandro, and Mark Mueller. He is the Managing Director of NYSE Sales. I mean, congratulations. You're officially here at the NYSE. Why was this so significant for you, Ed?
Well, equity secondary trading is one of our strongest offerings at Robertson Ryan. We had a very strong team to begin with, but we would need to expand our offerings for our customers. So working with Mark and his team, bringing on his great staff, is just going to allow us to provide better service to our customers.
And Mark, can you take us through the suite of offerings that you have here?
We do everything here. We trade equities, and we are very good at getting at the point of sale. We do a lot of IPOs, a lot of 10B18 company buybacks. So we offer everything to do with equities on the floor. We take advantage of everything being at the point of sale.
And you said since listing here at the NYSE, you've actually gotten outreach from people that you haven't heard from in a while, right?
That's right. This is such an iconic building. People have reached out to us to congratulate us for this combination. It's so exciting because it gives us another dimension. Being a disabled minority firm is something that we really like, and I think Ed could speak to the give back that the firm does for that.
Yeah, actually, Ed, why don't you take me through the company's mission and how the NYSE can help with that mission?
Absolutely. So we're actually one of the oldest veteran firms on Wall Street. We started in 1987, and we do everything. We do debt underwriting, equity underwriting. We do equity, fixed income, equity and fixed income trading. But coming down here, so one of the things that's most important about our firm is our social mission. So we give off top-line revenue back to organizations that are working with veterans every single day. So any dollar we make, we're dividing it among some of these firms that helping vets with PTSD, buying wheelchairs for severely disabled veterans who have lost limbs or are paralyzed, putting children through college who lost a parent in combat and things like that. So it's really important for us to be down here, like I said, offering new offerings to our customers and just expanding our business.
That's amazing. Truly, truly great work. Now let's talk more about what investors are, well, what's on top of mind for investors right now. What are some of the biggest questions that we're seeing in the investment community?
Yeah, so what we're hearing from our customers is how much better can things get? I think if you look at, the S&P is up 7% this year, trading at a PE of around 27. High yield and investment grade credit spreads are close to 10-year tights. Actually, all markets are doing well, with the exception of commercial real estate. And a lot of that was predicated on the fact that the Fed was going to be cutting interest rates by quite a bit early in the year. And we don't think that's going to happen anymore. I think if you look at the economic numbers, consumer spending is still strong, GDP is strong. Inflation, while coming down, is still elevated. So the question becomes, like, what reason would the Fed have to cut interest rates? What problem are they solving? And they've kind of indicated that they don't want to lower rates than to only raise them again later if inflation spikes again. So we got another economic number coming tomorrow. The non-farm payroll was very strong in January. You've got another, probably looking at another strong number in February. So they're probably not likely to be cutting interest rates until December. And so then that kind of brings you back again to, like, what do the markets care about? And so you can right now buy risk-free T-bills at a 5.30 yield versus, let's say, a triple B 5-year corporate bond at 5.5 to 580, or the S&P at a 27 PE. So that risk-free T-bill at 530 looks pretty attractive. So our customers are wondering if they should be taking chips off the table.
And we'll be looking for that update. Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, as we get ready for more coverage, we're going to toss it to a quick word from the NYSE.
Well done.
And shifting gears a little bit, our social team is gearing up for International Women's Day. Spearheading this initiative is our social head over here for the NYSE. Walk us through our plan.
Well, I'm Laura Diorio. I run social for the New York Stock Exchange. And if you're watching this right now, you're either on LinkedIn, X, YouTube, or right to the Pentair folks. So we are supporting International Women's Day tomorrow in a number of ways, both our listed community, all of the wonderful listed companies that are spearheading initiatives for International Women's Day, as well as an internal video that I can't spoil yet, but you'll just have to stay tuned on NYSE Instagram, X, TikTok, LinkedIn to see it tomorrow. It's featuring all of the wonderful women of the New York Stock Exchange. So I'm filming it all today, actually, on the trading floor. So you'll see it all edited and clean and ready to go tomorrow.
Oh, I love that. Actually, that was going to be my next question. Some of the other videos that you're working on this month, come on, give us get a little preview.
Well, we're really focused on community, right? So that's both the community within the New York Stock Exchange as well as our listed community and the folks that we hope one day join our listed community. So I have the distinct privilege of running social here all across these platforms to really amplify these wonderful entrepreneurs and leaders. And let's see, I just did a fun trend video last week featuring a lot of NYSE folks, and coming down the pike, a few shorter clips. Leaders that come through, answer quick 3 questions for us. What's a mantra you live by? What's one word to describe your leadership? Things like that to really get introduced to these amazing leaders that come through the New York Stock Exchange.
A lot of important work. And speaking of work, I know that you have a job to do too, so I'll let you know.
I appreciate it, Trinity.
Right, I'll see you later. All right, we have so much more to get to, but I'm going to throw it to a video that my colleague Judy Shaw did host a floor talk with the CEO of Deep Blue about women's pay equity. Let's take a listen.
So in my business in particular, I grew up in the advertising industry as a media buyer. So what that means is on behalf of some of the biggest brands in the world, spending tens of hundreds of millions of dollars annually, I'm responsible for investing their money into the advertising marketplace to get the best return for their business objectives. As a buyer with nearly 20 years experience, I understand the infrastructure and how, when you look at commercial valuations, when you look at dollars coming in that is going to push things into prime time or building ancillary shoulder programming around it, what you realize is that for the last however many years, women's sports has been sold the same way men's sports has been sold, largely on a reach and efficiency play. What do women's sports at this current state in the market not deliver on? Reach and efficiency. So, for example, if you have $1 to invest on behalf of a brand, and you're given the opportunity to invest that dollar in Sunday Night Football versus the WNBA playoffs, for example, this dollar in Sunday Night Football, you don't have to justify that decision. So we started to uncover that the currencies are not necessarily reflective of the maturity of where women's sports is today, because largely they haven't been on prime time. In many instances, they haven't even been on television. And so as that continues to increase, we need to evaluate it for what it's actually delivering on, which is a brand and engagement play. What we see with women's sports fans, they are 2 to 3xing in every brand metric you could possibly imagine in comparison to general sports fans. So whether that's affinity, loyalty, lifetime value, they are exceeding that from a general sports perspective. So the currencies are not right, the metrics aren't right, and so when you could start to fix the systemic business challenge, now you're on your way to start to evaluate and move the money and make making women's sports inherently an and, not an or. And we think this is important for women's growth. So we're leaning in very heavy on behalf of our brand clients that we're representing in the market from a media capacity. And then once we fix that, then you get into storytelling, making sure messages are reflective of the markets that we're representing, et cetera, and so forth. But we really feel we've found an interesting way in that hasn't necessarily been addressed thus far.
So Laura, tell me, what are Deep Blue's initiative and goals for the coming year?
Sure. So business currently roadmapped. We really have a game plan between now through LA 28 is sort of giving ourselves a bookmark, 3 parts of the business. So as I'm alluding to, agency services, so strategy, media, investment, creative, as well as experiential on behalf of our brand clients. So agency services as a pillar. We'll also be moving into branded entertainment. Many brands are very interested in financing these projects. So in addition to, getting in and underwriting, also surrounding that with media promotion to make sure the content is actually discoverable. Again, a visibility challenge that has existed thus far. So agency services, production services. And then we think there's a future state where Deep Blue could also develop a venture fund, get into the M&A business, essentially start taking the money and the strategies that we're developing and reinvesting it back into the market. So pronged portfolio approach, but we're really excited about it.
Now, I mentioned earlier that today is National Girls and Women in Sports Day. So tell me, what's your perspective on the importance of this day?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm living at 365 days a year at the moment, but I think it is important to take a pause and really reflect on how much progress has been made. You go back to Title IX passing in 1972. We're not that far out from it, relatively speaking. And so when you look at the tremendous inroads women's sports has been making, I would say particularly over the last 4, 5, 6 years, we're seeing record turnouts. I mean, 90,000 people attending a college volleyball game, at Nebraska. We're seeing WNBA playoffs here in Brooklyn, New York, sold out. I mean, the roof, that place was rocking. I haven't been in that incredible of a sports environment in New York in as long as I can remember. I was out at the World Cup, in Australia this past summer, seeing 70,000, 80,000 people going absolutely wild for these incredible women and the work that they're putting in on the field, but also the work that they're doing off the field. And so I think these moments in time throughout the year are really important to reflect and, take a look at what's working. But we're also hyper-focused on where we need to go next. So really using it as an opportunity to engage with the market, think about and plan for, not just the next year, the next 2, 5, 50. So I think it really is about that reflection, that spotlighting, and continuing to keep the conversation in the forefront.
Each year, Journey to Lead selects an annual class of powerhouse women to spearhead their important work and their mission. To talk more about it is Syndio CEO Maria Colacurcio and the CEO and founder of Fresh Belly's founder and CEO Saskia Sarrosa. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
So let's first talk about more of Journey to Lead. For our viewers who might not know, why is this so significant? Maria, we'll start with you.
Sure. I think it's pretty significant because there's a lot of talk now about equal pay for equal work. We've talked about that a lot in the past, and it's become table stakes. But one thing that folks don't talk about as much is opportunity for advancement. And that's really where Journey to Lead focuses, is how can they help by bringing powerful women together to infuse that sense of networking and give them opportunities to think about moving forward in their career.
Saskia, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, being part of this class of fellows has really helped me understand the impact that Journey has, not just on individual journeys like our own, but in the larger community of professional women. Everything from like mentorship and access and resources, curated connections. These are all the tools that we need to help build the next generation of women who will lead successfully. And I think without a group like Journey, that's really hard to do.
And you both were selected as fellows for this year. How significant is that? What does that mean to you, Maria?
Yeah, it means a lot because not only are you surrounded by 24 other incredible women who are doing amazing things with their careers, they're leading companies, they have high-level positions as executives at the Fortune 500. So just being in that community of women is a really powerful thing on its own because now you have a peer set of people to talk through issues. We're all going through things in our own professional journey, and so being able to have that cohort is really important.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's the support system. It's realizing that you can't do it, no one does it on their own, and you really need this group this tribe to help you get to the next level, and then also help pave the way for other women to come up and lead.
And Maria, last time we talked, we were talking about pay equity for women in the workplace. Can you walk us through some of the products that you offer at Syndio to help achieve that?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So at Syndio, we provide software to help companies prevent pay and opportunity gaps. And that's hugely important always, but also because we're about to hit the first Equal Pay Day on March 12th. And for folks that aren't aware, Equal Pay Day, the first one, is really just for white women. So if you keep going throughout the year, the last Equal Pay Day is for Latina women, and it signifies how long it takes women to earn the same amount in 1 year as men. So I think it's really important that companies keep doubling down on leveraging innovation and technology like what we provide to identify, do they have disparities that are because of something like gender or race, and how do they fix them?
And Saskia, you launched Fresh Bellies in 2016. Tell me about some of your biggest goals and achievements that you hope to accomplish for 2024.
Yeah, so right now our products are, which is a line of healthy, sustainable snacks with Latin-inspired flavors, are available in over 5,000 retail stores nationwide. And we're looking to expand that distribution and really make our products accessible to everyone, so we can encourage everyone to snack healthier every day.
What was your motivation behind it? Tell me about your story.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Ecuador, and my dad was a banana farmer and agricultural entrepreneur, and so I grew up around food and eating fruit straight from the vine at a very early age. And when I moved to the US, I realized that the way that we eat here and the way that children in particular eat here was drastically different than how I grew up in South America. And I wanted to change that. I wanted children to be exposed to a variety of flavors. I wanted us to be closer to our food source and to really start to eat cleaner, just clean ingredients that taste good and are fun.
And you know, you also have an interesting story because you worked in the NBA for over a decade, and then you made the transition to start Fresh Bellies. I mean, what motivated you to make that transition, and how did you deal with the transition?
Yeah, I really thought the NBA was where I was going to retire. It was my dream job. But really, kids changed my priorities. I mean, it really turned my world upside down, and it made me want to do something bigger than myself, where I felt like I could be making an impact in people's lives. And so I decided, after I had my second daughter, I took 6 months of maternity leave and decided this was my chance to do this. I felt like this was my calling, and I gave my resignation and started it from scratch. I never thought I would do that. I really thought I was going to stay at the NBA forever.
Yeah, can you talk to me about some of the things that you learned through your time at the NBA that you carried over to building your brand, building your company, and that you implement on a daily basis?
Yeah, my role at the NBA was very entrepreneurial, so I was in charge of all of their consumer marketing and particularly focused on multicultural consumers, so Hispanics, women, kids, any of the underrepresented, what we call fan bases. And so I had my own sort of business within the business that allowed me to be really creative, do things completely out of the box from a league perspective. And I feel like all of those just innovative approaches to how to run a business and really lead with integrity were things that I brought with me to start Fresh Bellies.
And you know, Maria, I want to talk about Syndio and your role, right? I mean, and you also have a big family. You have many daughters, and they look up to you. You have so many people who look up to you also as a mentor. What would you like to teach them? What do you hope they take away from how you lead your employees, your company, and everything that you apply to your professional and personal life?
Yeah, thanks. The other thing I will say is with 7 kids, they are huge fans of Fresh Bellies. So it's stocked in our pantry at all times at this point. So it's been a big win. I would say when you're thinking about how you want to model leadership for your kids, in particular your daughters, but all your kids really, it's about how can I show up and show my kids that in my work, I'm putting team over self. So thinking about what is best for the business, what is best for the people that work for me and the people that work with me, versus what's best for me individually. And I think in thinking about that and modeling that, it's really important because kids pick up on that. They hear the conversations you're having with your spouse about work. They listen every day. They know if you're miserable. They know if you're happy. They know if you're inspired and passionate. Yeah. So what I hope is when my kids see me at work, they understand that I love what I do and that I'm passionate about what I do, and I get up every day and I get to make a difference in the world, not that I'm getting up and it's just a complete drag and I'm miserable. So that's what I try to think about as I go through the day to day.
And you know, I love the story that you told me how when you were pregnant, when you were like not working every single day, you took everything that you were doing while you were at home and you put it on a resume. Can you tell our viewers about that story? Because I just find that so inspiring, and everything that you can take from being a mom, being a mentor, everything, and apply it to corporate.
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's research that shows that the motherhood penalty is very real, and it's not just from a wage perspective, but once we have kids, women are perceived by men and women as being less devoted to their work. And I think I really found that not only when I had kids, but I also took some time off and stayed home with them when they were young, which was the biggest gift of time with my kids when they were small, and such a privilege. But when I came back into work, there were a lot of questions about, what is this gap on your resume? What have you been doing? Have you been sitting around all day? And so translating those skills from being able to mentor and lead and coach and juggle and manage time, there's so much that goes into just managing life that I think is very applicable for work. So I figured, you know, why not? And I just listed it on my resume as skills and experiences that I felt were valid.
How you're a key multitasker, unwavering under pressure, just so many different characteristics that when you told me that, I was like, wow, like I love this. Well, anyway, ladies, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Now we have so much more to get to, including speaking to the CEO of Forward Global. But first, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Right? It might be for some young women just raising your hand in class. It might be getting in front of a camera, right? It might be buying your first stock. It might be buying your first cryptocurrency. Each one of those moments is an opportunity. And we like to say, like, if it can be part of your daily routine, right? To think about, what was something I did today that was a little bit tougher for me, that was maybe I would call a risk. Pretty soon, your risk appetite is going to grow.
What do you think will encourage more women in business to take risks like these?
I think first acknowledging and having the people around acknowledge that women need to practice these things, that they don't necessarily grow up taking a ton of risks. Some might, but many often do not. And so once we acknowledge that we have to teach, I think there's an opportunity to teach taking risks.
Connecting the opportunity is just part of the hustle.
Opportunity is using data to create a competitive advantage.
It's raising capital to help companies change the world.
It's making complicated financial concepts seem simple.
Opportunity is making the dream of home ownership a reality.
Writing new rules and redefining the game.
And driving the world forward to a greener energy future.
Opportunity is setting a goal.
And charting a course to get there.
Sometimes the only thing standing between you and opportunity is someone who can make the connection.
At ICE, we connect people to opportunity.
Learning and development at ICE is all about empowering our employees, leveraging the amazing amount of knowledge that we have across the business.
We've put quite a bit of investment in our programs just in the last couple of years. It's exciting, frankly, at this point where we are.
What I love best about working at ICE is that it's a multinational company with people from all over the world that hold tremendous amount of knowledge and expertise in whatever it is that they do.
Yeah, I've found opportunities in this industry, in this field, to really serve people and to help people with their careers.
I love to teach. I think it's a beautiful position to be in, to share knowledge and to see people get better from what you give them. This company always keeps me on my toes because it's continuously expanding, growing into new fields in the financial landscape.
My favorite part of the job is getting to watch employees grow and develop through their careers. It gives me a great deal of satisfaction when we run a program, for example, and we get impact from people about how it's made a difference professionally, but also how it's made an impact on them personally.
ICE has established itself on its core competencies: integrity, collaboration, communication, leadership, and problem solving.
We tie a lot of our programs back to those core values and the behaviors that support those. I think learning and development really fits within the culture of ICE just by the nature of the organization.
It is up to you to be vigilant, curious, inquisitive, ask questions that will help you succeed in your role.
Now we have a very impactful event taking place here at the NYSE. Forward Global is hosting it, and to talk more about it and give us a little preview, I am joined with the CEO, Renee Kaplan, and Board Chair, Elliot Donnelly. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining me on NYSE TV Live. So your event is kicking off tonight. You know, give us a little preview about why it's so significant, why you chose the New York Stock Exchange, and what we can expect to see. Renee, I'll let you start.
Sure. Well, we're super excited. We feel like this is an extraordinary time for individuals and families who we represent to come together and think about what we can do better for the world and for the planet, people and planet. So they're coming to the New York Stock Exchange to explore models and ways and approaches that they can advance their own giving and their investing.
Through their philanthropy as well. Elliot, can you elaborate more on that point?
Yes. Forward Global is a network of 400 global philanthropists and social investors. They represent 22 countries, and they are from some of the great families of the United States. There's over 20 publicly listed companies have come from these families and individuals.
Incredible.
And I think what we are passionate about is really changing the narrative about what philanthropy can be. My great-great-grandfather, who founded R.R. Donnelly's and 4 other publicly listed New York Stock Exchange companies, his version of philanthropy was really about the community, but he also had an important value, which is the value of how business can change the community. It can be a leader, a social leader for public good. I think what we're seeing today is we're trying to look at a model beyond just our community and look globally. And we're trying to basically bring members together who can leverage all of their assets to affect change.
And you know, it is Women's History Month. Renee, talk to me about some of the women leaders, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists that will be attending these events.
Yeah. So of the 400 members that we have, the majority are women now because of the great wealth transfer that is happening. So $85 trillion dollars are changing hands over the next 20 years, and the majority of that wealth is going towards younger leaders and women. So women are coming into a whole new era of empowerment around how they use their wealth and resources. So we're excited to have leaders like Sheila Marcello, who went public, her company Care.com. She's one example of someone who's using both kind of the economic lever for change and also the social lever for change and helping families help, with the caregiving crisis in the U.S.
I love that. Elliot, can you elaborate more on that point about the social change that's going to be spearheaded through events like this that Forward Global is hosting here at the NYSE?
Yes. And I think one of the things we're so excited to be here at the NYSE is an iconic global brand.
Yeah.
It's one of the most famous brands and buildings in the world, and I think we're so happy to be here in partnership and in collaboration with the New York Stock Exchange. The New York Stock Exchange, I think, is leading the way in trying to diversify boardrooms. They're leading the way in how they think about how capitalism can help transform society. I think we believe deeply in those principles, and I think in everything that we do, I am not only have a legacy of great philanthropy through our family, but I'm also an investor. I run a venture capital fund, a multi-asset family investment firm, and everything that we're doing now is thinking about how we can help our businesses do better and do well.
Amazing. Renee, could you talk about some calls for action that you and your team are spearheading?
Yeah, so for us, we're at this extraordinary point in history where we really see the individuals and families at the center of all the leadership decisions that are needed for whether you're in a business, you're leading a government position, or whether you're in your philanthropy. So the call to action for us, and we really hope our members can help demonstrate, is what are the innovative approaches that are happening at the intersections of business, government, and philanthropy. It's not one or the other.
No.
It's the intersections and the integration. So that for us, there are models that are super exciting that we see. So over the next few days, we're going to be exploring those, helping to hopefully inspire more people to join us in taking up and getting off the sidelines earlier as part of that change.
Elliot, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I think one of the things that, as Renee mentions is when you look at the global capitalist system, you see $140 trillion are held by institutional investors. These are the family offices, the insurance companies, the sovereign wealth funds and pension funds. And there's maybe $1 to $3 trillion in foundation endowments. With the scope of the issues that we're trying to address today, just the $3 trillion isn't enough. So we have to find ways to leverage the government's balance sheets, we have to find ways to leverage corporate balance sheets, as well as individual philanthropists' balance sheets to affect the change. And we have to find ways of working together. Traditionally, these have all been in silos. In the past, my great-grandfather would think about the foundation as something totally separate from his business. But there's new ways that we can bring these actors together. We can have people who are thinking about philanthropic capital much like the way they do is financial capital, but with a different objective function. Yeah. So with your philanthropic capital now, you can help to invest in companies that can incubate new technologies that can change the world.
Yeah. A lot of important work and very important work that you guys do. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trinity.
Well, that just about does it for us here at the NYSE. For all of you watching at home, thank you so much for tuning in to NYSE TV Live. And I'm Trinity Chavez, signing off.
Iconic brands speak for themselves. The strongest brands stand the test of time. We are so excited to welcome you to our community. Today is all about you.
We've never lost sight of what we're trying to do and deliver that mission.
Going through this experience with my partners and my families has been unbelievable.
We imagined something that didn't exist yet, and we believed that we could do it.
You're going to look back on this accomplishment as one of the finest you've ever done.
I want you to know that the best is yet to come.
Just a few minutes, we'll go downstairs to the legendary New York Stock Exchange trading floor to ring the opening bell. The history here, the tradition, it's just incredible for us to be at this moment.